Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the Chargers. And it's one of those deals to where it doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does happen where, one, things make complete sense, hires are championed, and they don't always work. But this is one that you find it really hard to find somebody who goes, oh, that's a bad hire. Right? Could you say, hey, he's really conservative offensively with his style? Sure. Has it been a decade since he's been in the NFL? Okay. And the Chargers are going to have to remake their roster, and he's struggled to get along with player personnel people before, and, there's the Chargers curse, and there's all this other stuff. But, Jason Stewart, you are a Charger fan, but just a hater by nature, and I would guess we haven't really even discussed it because we just said, hey, we want to talk about this. I would guess it's pretty hard to pick to poke holes in this thing, right?
Yeah, I think for the first time since I can remember following this team, I've been very pleased with the decision, like extremely pleased with the decision that I thought they should make from the very get-go. So often the Chargers will make a choice and you'll be like, where did that come from? And it might surprise you a little bit later, but rarely do they make the obvious choice and they spend the money and they put it down, and I'm really thrilled with this hire.
Yeah. Yep. Now, doesn't mean it'll work, right?
No, it's a risk. There is a risk.
Lots of risk. Lots of risk involved. And maybe Justin Herbert's not good enough. Maybe he doesn't fit. Maybe there's too many different coordinators, as they'll probably change offensive coordinators as well. All these things are possible. But it does. It is one of those, sometimes the easiest possible solution is the right solution, and this seems like an easy, smart solution, does it not?
Exactly right.
Buyer, can you find fault with it? Can somebody find, my whole thing is maybe, because he did a good job despite the fact he's a huge name of not becoming at least an outward egomaniac at Michigan. That's the big problem with college coaches, right? He's won in the pros. He's played in the pros, so he understands the whole NFL player mentality, that sort of thing. I don't know. Do we have a but other than everything else?
I don't. Here's the amazing thing about it is I have not heard any negative things.
None.
There may be stuff down the road, and again, let's call him the Teflon Jim, because Michigan commits all of these supposed violations, and now he's considered a martyr by many, and an underdog in America's team in the whole deal. And then now he leaves Michigan and goes to the NFL, and there isn't anything wrong. Now, I don't think that there really is anything to fault. I think that he was the number one candidate of all the candidates, and that includes Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel, who are still looking for work, and other hot assistants. The only other hot assistant that I thought maybe would rival is Ben Johnson. So if Ben Johnson goes to the Commanders, maybe that hire is waiting to be made. But other than that's the only one that could rival Harbaugh, and I still don't think that the hiring of Ben Johnson it would be bigger than Harbaugh in this hiring cycle.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Even Belichick comes with questions, right? You're not sure how's it going to work in a different organization. Harbaugh doesn't seem to have any of that sort of stuff. And now he goes into a situation that I think many thought was the best considering their quarterback situation. Yeah, I don't think there's reason to find faults or complaints.
I know. It's weird. But again, we can't promise that it will work. We have had, everyone knows of a hire that was made. You're like, well, that'll work. And it didn't. I guarantee. And it's usually with your favorite team. I'm at Buyer. Was there a hire made from one of your favorite teams that you're like, that would work, and it didn't work?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. There are more that I was skeptical of that ended up working out.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the opposite way.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. I'll give you one that's kind of interesting. Because I'm in Wisconsin, right? I'm at Milwaukee. Yeah, I'm in Madison. And forever, people thought Tony Bennett would be the coach here at Wisconsin. When he got the Virginia job, I remember people said, well, he doesn't have any ties to Virginia. How's he going to recruit at Virginia? Well, they went on and won national championship, And basketball-wise, like there's been a lot of, hey, I think that'll work, and it hasn't worked. Football-wise, whatever. So what's the one you were going to get to?
Well, the two in my fandom that I had questions about that ended up working, Pete Carroll going to the Seahawks and giving them as much power as he did from USC. I think if we remember back to that time, there was a question because things weren't going great at USC. And you wondered maybe he was just a college coach because he hadn't had great success in his two other stints as an NFL head coach. So that was one, and obviously that worked out really well. And the other was Jim Tressel at Ohio State in being brought in when they fired John Cooper. And you're wondering, what is this guy from Youngstown State going to do? And that ended up working out pretty well as well. So those were like the two that I questioned that ended up, working out swimmingly. But, it's, maybe the Adrian Griffin one, with the Bucs is you're like, okay, this is going to work. And now we've seen how that's worked out.
Yeah. What about you, Jay Stu? Is there a hire you can think of that you loved that didn't work out?
Yeah, I think that you stay with the city and the Dodgers. I think the Joe Torre hire, after he left the Yankees, I thought was like a no-brainer. And maybe that had more to do with the ownership at the time and just the way this team was structured, but it didn't quite work. I mean, I think they maybe ran off a division title or two, but it didn't have quite the impact that we all expected it. But that was the easiest hire and the best hire and the no-brainer, and they made it. It just didn't work. Now this one's tricky, I think, Doug, because I heard Cowherd say that this could be an 11, 12-win team next year, and it's like there is so much to do with this roster still, and so much to cut, like so much fat to trim, and they have to draft well, and that's what kind of makes us we got to wait and see if this is going to work. I don't know if I'm even going to judge them by next year. It seems like this next year is like kind of gravy, isn't it?
Well, it's also right. You're going to have a new general manager. So new general manager, new coordinators, you're going to have new visions for exactly what it looks like. And sometimes that hybrid year, that year in the middle can be a little tricky, right?
Yeah, he's gone on a honeymoon year, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. I can think of one. There's a guy, he's the head coach of Air Force now, a guy named Joe Scott. He played at Princeton. And I think it was when John Thompson III left Princeton to go to Georgetown, he was hired as head coach of Princeton, and everybody thought it would work. And it didn't work. It did not work. Prophet, what do you think?
Well, just thinking back at guys who didn't work, I mean, I really thought Stan Van Gundy would finally at least, get a little bit of semblance of order to the Pistons when he took that job. And they made the playoffs, but they also made some terrible, terrible trades that ended up scuppering that team right back to the bottom. I think with Harbaugh, though, if there's one thing I think that I get worried about a little bit, it's the attitude. Because we saw his falling out in San Francisco with the front office, with the ownership, with Trent Baalke to a alarming degree. And he's kind of used to ruling the roost at Michigan, and I think he's learned a lot from San Francisco. I don't expect it to rear its head, but it's something I think I would keep an eye on. And yeah, like to what Jason Stewart said, there's still a lot to be worked on for this roster. I think sometimes there's some good, bright talent on the Chargers, but it does mask a lot of the issues. But if I'm going to find any fault with Jim Harbaugh's hire, it's that. Can he work in a collaborative atmosphere in the NFL, which you kind of have to do in today's organizations?
Yeah, you do. Okay, so let me ask you, Dan Byer, right? You're the most reasonable. You're not connected as a fan. What do you think are reasonable? And again, like the rosters aren't set. Like, what do you think is reasonable to think of the Chargers next year?
I actually think that a playoff berth is well within reach, considering the expanded playoffs that we've now seen. Sure, you may have to win 9, may have to win 10 games. I think there will be a remarkable change. There will be more juice squeezed out of that orange than Brandon Staley could ever dream of. I always, maybe in looking at it that way, there always seemed to be stuff left over. They weren't able to get the most out of what they had. And while they may have less because of the revamping, I think they're going to get more out of their less than maybe what Staley ended up getting out of theirs. I think that they could compete for a playoffs. You have the quarterback that is usually 75% of the problem.
They weren't that far out of the playoffs, to be honest, this year, right? If they were reasonably well coached, they'd be in the playoffs this year. Don't you think guys? All right, Jay Stu, what's your reasonable expectation?
I mean, well, to that last part, I wish I had been saying it for the last 10 months that the coach was the problem. But like I said, to me, just like this Dodger season, we keep making it about me and my teams, but I thought everything the Dodgers did this past season was gravy because they obviously were saving up for the Shohei Ohtani push, and they didn't spend a dime going into last year. They didn't make any major money moves at the deadline, and they still ran off 105 wins. So it's like I kind of see this Chargers season as the same thing. I'm not going to have any expectations going in. I just want to see how it works. If it's 6 wins, if it's 12 wins, everything's gravy to me, I think.
Prophet?
I think the big thing is that you're going to have a top 5 pick in a year where there's a lot of teams who those first 3 are probably going to be quarterback. At least first 2 are going to be quarterback. Like you're going to have
maybe first 3.
Yeah,
a lot of people think Jaden Daniels will go in that top 3 as well.
Yeah, and we assume like I don't know where Marvin Harrison Jr. will go, but like you're getting a blue chip prospect one way or another at the top there. I think that's a big factor to this, and I think I agree with Dan. I think like 9-10 wins should be doable. In that, I mean, we've seen other teams start out slow in the AFC sometimes. I think they can turn it around pretty significantly in just the first year.
Well, look, here's the thing. Okay, so Brandon Staley, when he took over the job, he became known for be the analytics guy, the go for it on fourth down guy, right? And the first year he went for it a ton and had some success, had some bizarre decisions, right? Like going for it in your own 19-yard line against the Raiders in the last week of the season where you got to win to make the playoffs or tie to make the playoffs. But you could see it was different than the previous regime. I'd say for Harbaugh, like the easiest way to get people to buy into it being different, okay? Because we don't really know, we can't really tell if somebody's really well coached or not, other than just the obvious results. But there's just stuff that they got, obvious stuff that feels like they have to clean up. And I'd say the easiest one, and Jay Stu, you can speak to this, is just no decisions that leave you going like, what are they doing? That doesn't make any sense.
One of the big things we see each year is these one-score losses turning around. The Chargers lost 8 games this year by 1 score.
Yep. No, well, that I don't know how you eliminate that feeling other than just doing it. And that feeling, I mean, it's that feeling that they're going to find a way to lose, not find a way to win. Right? The Chiefs are a team that they always find a way to win. The Chargers are a team that they always find a way to lose. And we all know anyone who's been, and you can get over that does change, whether it's big game, small game, whatever. I would say getting off to a hot start would help, whereas this year you got off to a terrible start. Several of the last couple of years they've gotten off to bad starts. But I think, I don't know, Jay Stu, if it's me, it's just more, can we not have any of the decisions that leave us going, that doesn't make any sense.
I think those are out the window. I know you asked Jay Stu. I want to quick throw in something else with this because it does matter. Mm-hmm. You're also got a Chargers team that's playing a last place schedule.
Yep. That matters.
Their conference division that they match up with schedule-wise is the AFC North. That's a little troublesome. However, the division they play from the NFC is the NFC South. So you could run the table with that division. Maybe go 3-1. So that will help them not to go on the all wins and losses things. But when you're trying to figure out how a team is going to play, you got games against the Patriots, Cardinals, and the NFC South next season. And if you go 5-1 in those, you're halfway there. And Jim Harbaugh likely is the difference in winning those games against likely bad teams.
Yeah, it's a great point. Schedule does matter. We always brush it off as like everybody plays the same schedule. You play like, no, you don't. It's totally different. And a last place schedule is just that. It's the way that the NFL almost guarantees that half the teams in the playoffs won't be in the playoffs next year, right? That's how they cycle through it. I mean, look no further, honestly, than the Philadelphia Eagles. Were the Eagles worse this year than they were last year? Yeah, but last year they played a really, really soft schedule. Really soft schedule. So they played the easiest schedule in the NFL. This year they played a difficult schedule. What's interesting about the Eagles was when the schedule was really difficult, they were actually 10-1. It was a little bit softer at the end of the schedule, and they couldn't win any games, but that early part really beat them up. But that's a great point, Dan Byer, where you talk about schedules do, in fact, matter. To me, quality coaching is something that it's like the old definition of pornography. You know it when you see it. You can't really put your finger, can't really truly describe it. But I think, Perfett, you pointed out how many close games have they lost. That feeling of dread, when does that go away for a Charger fan? Dread meaning, oh, we're going to find a way to lose this game. And I even think Herbert, as much as I think the world of Justin Herbert, like he was not good in fourth quarters when they had to have it drives this year. So I think a sort of, believe it or not, as much as he's a bit of a bizarre dude, kind of there's a calming effect because he's been successful previously. And maybe we're putting too much into Jim Harbaugh that, like, is he a really good coach? Yeah, but you got to have really good players. When he was in San Francisco, great players. In Michigan, they had great players. When he's at Stanford, they had the best quarterback in college football, one of the greatest quarterbacks in years in terms of as a prospect. And Herbert's good. I don't know if he's that good. But this is a unique hire where you can, in this day and age, in anything you do, one of the things social media is great for is somebody to say something nasty about the most mundane, average, feel-good story. You name the story, and somebody can find something bad to say about it. That's the beauty and dysfunctional capabilities of social media. And here we are, a hire of a team that traditionally everybody thinks finds a way to spit up all over themselves. The second team at best in L.A. And all anybody can say is, you know what? They got their guy. He's a good hire. How that works out, I don't know.